In the long history of the world, only a few generations have been granted the role of defending freedom in its hour of maximum danger. I do not shrink from this responsibility. I will confirm.
You have to let it all go, Neo. Fear, doubt, and disbelief. Free your mind.
Over the past several days, the rioting in this country has just continued. In fact, it's escalated. People are rioting, of course, because of the death of a man named George Floyd at the hands of a Minnesota police officer. But even after this police officer got arrested and charged, the rioting continued. So a lot of people are asking, why does the rioting not stop? Well, some people think it's opportunism, that they're looting TVs from Target, they're breaking into Louis Vuitton to steal luxury handbags. And yeah, we see a lot of this across the country, I think around 25 or so cities. But the leftists in media will tell you this is about decades of oppression, that these people have been oppressed by the police for so long that the rage extends beyond just one police officer. I think both of these are fairly decent explanations for specific instances. And I also think it has to do a bit with the lockdown. People got pent up rage, man. They were locked in their homes and eventually they snap. Give them a good reason, give them any reason really, and they'll be out in the streets protesting, then rioting. Now, if you were to ask the governor of Minnesota, he would tell you that it's domestic terrorists and international forces trying to destabilize this country, which leads us to a very interesting question about, well, maybe there's something else, or is there something else actually working to foment these protests and riots? It would seem the answer to that is yes. We don't necessarily know why. But according to the governor of Minnesota, he thinks cartels, maybe white supremacists. Donald Trump, of course, says it's Antifa. We've seen reporting from the activist news organization Unicorn Riot that shows most of these people are white anti-fascists. I guess the funny point to be made is if you're a white person, regardless of your politics, going into black neighborhoods and burning things down, well, that says a lot about what you might be fighting for. But there are videos coming out which are interesting. One shows a bunch of bricks stacked up in front of a courthouse. Why are there bricks there when there's no construction? Another video shows a man wearing all black. They call him the mysterious umbrella man. He walks up to an AutoZone out of nowhere, smashes the windows and leaves. Another video going viral shows what looks like children dressed as National Guardsmen standing guard. Certainly that seems fake. These stories, these tidbits, circumstantial evidence, show us that someone, for some reason, is trying to make everything worse. There's even one video from journalist Max Blumenthal showing what appears to be an undercover officer getting out of a vehicle pretending to be a journalist. Now, that could just be policing, so I don't lump it in with the other videos. But look, man, this evidence shows someone wants this to happen. Now, in my opinion, I've seen a lot of activists strategize these things where they'll get in a van. They'll get a van and they'll say, we're going to put a bunch of bricks and stuff in it. And we leave these bricks at key locations so that when the protesters march past it, the bricks are readily available. It doesn't mean there's a government or cartel or white supremacist groups. It just means that activists have planned for this. So at the very least, it looks like, yeah, there's evidence to suggest these are being set up on purpose. Of course, Vice would like to go the white supremacist route, saying that it's the Boogaloo Boys, that they want this to turn into a civil war, as it were. But let's find out. Let's read this and see exactly what's going on. And I want to make sure I'm clear. I don't know who or what or why. I know, I'm sorry. I should probably be more definitive. But we have this very important statement, an unprecedented move from the governor of Minnesota, which, I mean, if he's saying that these forces are doing this, then I think we can take this, we can at least look into it. I'll put it that way. But let's see exactly what's going on. I want to show you these videos. Wait till you see the one where the bricks are just perfectly stacked right in front of a courthouse. And why is that? Even the activists are like, what is this all about? You're trying to set us up. That's what they said. Before we get started, head over to timcast.com/donate if you'd like to support my work. There are several ways you can give. I got a P.O. box. The best thing you can do is share this video. I'm competing with the mainstream media. I don't got a big marketing budget, but Even though YouTube is suppressing my channel, it seems to do okay, mostly because you guys share the video. That helps me grow. If you just want to watch, hit the subscribe button, the like button, the notification bell. Let's read the news. The Daily Mail says furious governor of Minnesota says George Floyd protests are being manipulated by domestic terrorists and international forces trying to destabilize the nation, and fully mobilizes the National Guard as U.S. descends into chaos. Quote, last night is a mockery of pretending that this is about George Floyd's death or inequities or historical traumas to our communities of color, Governor Tim Walz, a Democrat, said on Saturday. On Friday night, widespread looting and arson continued in Minneapolis and nearby St. Paul in defiance of curfews there. And protests spilled into violence in 30 cities as a federal agent in California and a protester in Detroit were shot dead. Quote, the situation in Minneapolis is no longer in any way about the murder of George Floyd. It is about attacking civil society, instilling fear, and disrupting our great cities. As you saw this expand across the United States, and you start to see whether it be domestic terrorists, whether it be ideological extremists who fan the group, or whether it be international destabilization of how our country works, he continued. We can see all these photos, man. These are crazy photos. On Friday night, Walz hinted that white supremacists and drug cartels may be fueling violence or taking advantage of the chaos in the rioting. Pressed by reporters on rumors that white supremacists were secretly infiltrating Black Lives Matter protests and instigating violence, Walz said, my suspicions and what I've seen on this, yes. It gets worse than that. The cartels, who are wondering if there was a break in the drug transmissions, are trying to take advantage of the chaos. That's why the situation is on a federal level. Walz said at his Saturday press conference that protection of citizens and property is our top priority, and maintaining and restoring civil order on the streets. I want to show you some of these videos, but we'll go through some tweets. In this one, we have Max Nestorak. He is a reporter at the Minnesota Reformer who said, there were POC looting, but what I heard is the fires were caused by white outsiders on both ends of the political extremes. This is at least partly or mostly true. Who is responsible for destruction is really complicated and not something we fully know or I can explain in this thread. Well, here's what I'll point out. In another viral video, a group of black men are telling young white protesters, anti-fascist protesters, to stop the violence, saying that when this is all said and done and you leave, we still have to be here. Because these white people come from outside the city, outside the state, and cause violence in black communities. I have to question whether these people truly are anti-fascist. Now, I'm sure many of these Antifa types are just really, really dumb. But think about this for just 2 seconds. Black community, white people who don't live there, who come in and burn the buildings down. Let me just make it simple for you. Whether it's Antifa or otherwise, it is young, idealistic white people going to black communities and burning their buildings. Take a look at this tweet. Mike Griffin said, started recording these white guys who was completely out of place, planning to, quote, 86 this building. It seemed like an organized burning. They tried to fight. We ran them away. After tonight, I'm convinced that the fires are largely organized arson. The dudes they're talking to are Antifa, or at least pretending to be. Now, you can claim Antifa is just an ideology. It's just a movement, whatever. It means anti-fascist, right? Then how easy was it for these young white people who want to burn down your buildings to infiltrate, pretend to be, or maybe they actually are? Does it really matter? If they say they're Antifa, they're Antifa. But these weren't overt white supremacists. They, at least I should say overt, right? That's the point, visibly. They're not walking around waving symbols. They're walking around in hoodies, kind of like the Umbrella Man, wearing all black, coming in with a hammer, holding an umbrella and smashing windows. I'll get to that in a second. But here's what I want to bring up from Vice. Far-right extremists are hoping to turn the George Floyd protest into a new civil war. Armed extremists are showing up to protests and urging a boogaloo, code for civil war, online. Now, this story I find confusing and kind of funny, and maybe we'll get to it. I don't want to read through the whole thing, but I want to point out. You've got people on the left desperately trying to disavow the fact that it is white people, white activists, showing up and burning down these buildings and starting this rioting. I mean, the Umbrella Man was white. That guy was tweeting about white people. And in my experience, Antifa tends to be white, upper class young people. In fact, we see that from the Hidden Tribes report. If you're not familiar, I've covered it millions of times. I love citing this. They basically track the various political ideologies, and progressive activists tend to be young and white, and they tend to make a decent amount of money. But Vice wants to make it seem like they too are the white supremacists. What I find funny about the governor of Minnesota's statement is that, hey man, I'll argue these Antifa people are white supremacists, right? Because they're white people destroying the wealth of the businesses of the black community. I know, I get it. I'm being a bit hyperbolic, but you get the point. What's the difference? I mean, not only that, the protests we've seen from many white supremacists in this country haven't been nearly as bad as these riots have been. So what do you want to say? I don't know, man. I think they're all bad. They're all very bad. Let's take a look at some of this evidence. First, Jesse Rodriguez says, St. Paul, Minnesota Mayor Melvin Carter says every person arrested in his city last night was from out of state. Minnesota AG Keith Ellison tells Joyanne Reed that he has evidence and ample reason to believe that outside agitators are coming to Minnesota to cause harm and damage and incite violence. He said, he goes on, but we'll stop there because I want to make this point. Whoever is staging it, I don't know, but it seems like they are. If the people don't live there and they're out of state, they're not even in the city, they're not even from the state. You got to tell me, who are these people? In my opinion, I don't think it's white supremacists. Well, I take that back. I think Antifa tends to be white supremacist. Like, I mean that in the overt, in the literal sense. They are a group of self-righteous white people who think they are better and therefore they know better. And you must listen to what they have to say based on their race. It's not the same as we've seen from like what we expect of white supremacy, but you know, it basically fits the bill in a lot of ways. Take a look at this. Here's a tweet where this man, it's a video from Ruben Got Soul. The tweet is from Blue State Vacatur, who said, "Is this all a setup? Huge pallet of bricks just sitting outside a Dallas courthouse? No construction in the area? The Justice Department should find video of who made the delivery and when." And this guy who films this, I want to play this video for you. He plays it really, really well. Let me play the clip for you and you'll see what he has to say.
This right here?
Yeah, they put them there
This
on
the
purpose.
setup.
They put them there on purpose,
Y'all know where
bro.
we at.
They gonna set them hoes right up on the route.
Y'all know what building this is
Come
right
on
here.
now.
I ain't even gonna say what name it is.
Hey, where do them bricks go to? Where do them
This
bricks
is
go
setup.
to? Where do them bricks
We
go
gotta
to?
do better.
Ain't no damn construction.
Gotta do better.
Ain't no damn construction around here.
I see.
Ain't no damn construction.
It's a setup. You hear what he said? Look at this. For those that are listening, let me describe it to you. There's some kind of sign and just a stack of bricks. Now, listen, I'm not there. I can't confirm to you why those bricks are there. Some people are saying it makes no sense. There's no construction going on. These guys are there pointing it out, saying it's a setup. In my experience, what you're seeing here fits the bill for far left activists who bring supplies in early in the morning and leave them. There's nothing illegal about dropping off some bricks and driving away, right? And then what happens is when the riot starts, when people are running through the city, they see a stack of bricks and they grab them and they use them. How is it that people are walking around in all these cities and they just so happen to have all these bricks? Activists put them there. Activists who aren't from the city, who aren't from the state, who are showing up with bricks so that when people get mad and riot, yes, you will see videos of people of color looting Target. And they're saying, see, look, it's not the white people doing it. It's not about the race, okay? When you go into a neighborhood that is predominantly one race, don't be surprised if you see them predominantly as the ones rioting. That just makes sense. But who's starting it? Who's empowering this? And who's orchestrating it? That's the big question. Who was the first person to raid that Target store? Who was the first person to break that window? You see my point. Of course, then, angry people just fall in line and do what the mob does. This is a story from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Police deny link to mysterious umbrella man who broke windows during a riot. We got a photo of the umbrella man. There he is. All black, head to toe, wearing a gas mask. You can't see his face other than his eyes, holding a hammer. Umbrella. A lot of people thought he was Antifa. It's an Antifa tactic. It's a black bloc tactic. But this guy just showed up out of the blue, not part of the group, took the hammer and started smashing out windows of the AutoZone. The activists immediately claimed this man was a cop. There's no evidence of that. In fact, the police deny it. They say, no way. I don't know if I want to show you the next bit they included, because these activists have been sending around a photo of some man who is blonde hair, blue eyed, and a cop, claiming it's him. I don't know it's him. I can't prove it's him. And in fact, I really don't think it is because I don't think the eye colors match. But the activists, in my opinion, don't care. They want to take the heat off themselves and increase the heat on the police. So a viral tweet goes around with text messages where they're like, oh my, it's him. I'm shaking. I can't believe it. No proof. None whatsoever. So let's move on to the next little bit of evidence here. This is from Max Blumenthal. Look what I found outside DC protest. An obvious cop dressed like a protester getting out of an unmarked car and telling me he's a CNN reporter. Beware of the lying provocateurs out here. Now, the reason I show this video is because it falls in line kind of with the theory from the activists that the rioting is being started by police. I still don't believe it, even though that tweet seems to be fake about the other cop and the umbrella man. I don't believe that's real. We do have it really does look like this guy might be a cop. So in the video, Max Blumenthal, I believe it is Max who actually confronts this guy. He says, who are you? Who are you with? The man says CNN. Max then turns around, walks to the car where the man came out of, presumably, and asks him who they are. And they say they're just hanging out. He then says the other guy said you were CNN. And they're like, no. Max makes the assumption they're police. We don't know. We have no idea who these men are. And that's why it's important to bring up. However, the key point I'm showing you all of this is because this is now the third, fourth, how many videos we have showing that there is some surreptitious behavior going on, subterfuge, whatever you want to call it. I don't know if these guys are cops. Maybe that's it. Maybe they're just trying to stop the rioting. Or maybe they're an ideological group that has resources. Maybe they're a private security company. We just don't know. Maybe for political reasons, someone dropped these bricks. We just don't know. Now I want you to see this video because this to me screams of false flag. I know. You gotta have evidence. I'm not a big fan of conspiracy theories. The Daily Dot reports video shows, quote, child soldiers standing guard at Atlanta protests. Updated. This is honestly weird. There's literally like a 12-year-old out here. Yeah. The video appears to show, I believe, 4 children wearing what looks like National Guard armor with shields or riot armor and sticks. I don't believe it. Not for 1 second. The Daily Dot and none of these outlets or individuals on Twitter have done anything to fact check or verify this. Now, the Daily Dot says they spoke with the person who filmed it. That isn't good enough. You can't just take a clip and run it. You need to know where the clip came from, what time it was, where were they at, what mall is this, what are these vehicles, what are these people doing, what are these kids doing? How easy would it be to get some costumes, some good ones, put some kids in it, pull up, have them get out of the car, film for 20 seconds, get them in the car and leave, send the footage to a reporter. Easy. It would be very easy. Do you know what's crazier than that theory? That the police and National Guard are equipping children to go out and guard a mall. In fact, only 4 of them. This is such an obvious fake ploy meant to make us go insane. That's the only way I can describe it because I don't know what it is. Some people have said it may actually just be really old footage. Maybe. But let me tell you something first and foremost. The National Guard wouldn't have 4 children, wouldn't have 4 men just standing there. That doesn't make any sense. Some people said maybe it's junior ROTC. I mean, maybe, but come on. What's the simple solution? I honestly have no idea. Some kids playing a game, having fun. I mean, there's cop cars behind them. I'll tell you what it isn't. You would have to be insane. You'd have to be the grandest of conspiracy theorists to think the government put children in these suits and had them go and stand out and guard this mall. That's just ridiculous. Reminds me of the Hunger Games film, the last one. I don't know if you've seen it, but as Katniss is approaching the President Snow's mansion, one of the president's own vehicles flies over and drops bombs on medics and children. Delayed reaction. And that was, in the movie, a false flag, meaning it was actually the enemy that was trying to convince all of the people the president was bombing children. You would have to be insane to do something like this. Unless, of course, you're trying to smear your opponent so that stupid people make it go viral. Unfortunately, stupid people made it go viral. They're sharing this like crazy without fact checking it. They just want it to be true. Now this, to me, goes back to the governor of Minnesota when he said domestic terrorists, white supremacists, international forces. And I got to agree with him. Maybe he's right. Who would have the ability to stage something like this and who would benefit from it? I honestly don't know. And I can't tell you. And I can't speculate. In my opinion, it's likely it's staged because I think you'd be a crazy conspiracy theorist to think the government's orchestrating child soldiers or something like that. But I really can't tell you. So what could anyone say about this? The only thing I can do to avoid the conspiracy theorizing and just defer back to official reporting is what the governor of Minnesota said, that there are international forces trying to destabilize. Convince the people of this country the National Guard is using children and they might freak out. They might lose confidence and faith. At the very least, it looks like someone is staging something. Maybe not this. I think so, but maybe not. I don't know. But certainly the bricks. That because I actually know activists who have planned things like that, going back 10 years, having covered a lot of this stuff. But we can't expect things to escalate here. Minneapolis protester warns the unrest will hit the suburbs next because there is nothing left here as thousands ignore city curfew and take to the streets in fourth night of unrest. And I'll tell you where this goes next. Owner of gutted Minneapolis shopping mall tells governor and mayor people will uprise over this. They will. There's a tweet. I retweeted it. I don't have it pulled up, where someone in Minneapolis said that local members of the community have started issuing like a bulletin, basically, to organize for their own defense because the police won't do it. What happens when people lose confidence in the police and in the government? The government is just the confidence of the people. If the people don't believe you can do anything to them, they go and do what they want. It's quite literally why we're seeing the riots. When George Floyd lost his life, people were angry, and justifiably so. They protested. The police then, came out. There was an escalation. Riots broke out. As soon as the riots broke out, do you know what these people realized? The police forces are stretched too thin. Now is my chance. Many of these people who are rioting are angry and just smashing things. Many of them are stealing things. But all of them agree the police can't do anything about it. Even the business owners who say that people will rise up are in agreement. The government has failed. In one tweet going viral, allegedly, the scanner said the National Guard has been unable to control the protests. Donald Trump has the Pentagon putting the military, the army, on standby to enter into Minneapolis. Something that hasn't been done since 1992. It's under the federalizing the National Guard and sending in the army. Has to do with the Insurrection Act. I'm not going to pretend like I'm a legal expert and can tell you everything about it. But I will tell you this. Regular working people and the rioters both agree the government has failed at this point. So I ask then, when does this become the boogaloo or whatever? Everybody seems to want a civil war, which brings me back to that story from Vice, which I find hilarious. Far-right extremists want to turn this into a new civil war. Yeah, but so does Antifa. Both factions want to do it. The extremists of all factions want to destabilize this, win, and then rebuild it in their image. That's something that sane regular people don't want. Well, Donald Trump has his opinion. We can hear from Vice on the left, it's the far right. Of course, Trump will tell you that it's Antifa and the radical left. I mean, can't it be both? Seriously, can't it be both? I defer back to that man saying that these white people were talking about 86ing buildings. Yeah, it's white anti-fascists. But then you also have the boogaloo people, whatever that, however you want to describe that, I'm not super familiar with it. But you have a lot of people who think that it's time. And now we're seeing riots across the country. If people don't have faith in their government and they don't expect anything to happen from their actions or others' actions, then they're going to just do whatever. Local communities are going to form militias or whatever you want to call it. Citizen patrol. I understand there's probably a difference between that and militia, but a lot of people have already been going out and buying guns. This has become a perfect storm of chaos in this country that could potentially lead to a real civil war. You laugh. Some people laugh, not all of you. But even Bill Maher said it. The tensions, and he said this months ago, were getting so hot that he wanted to tone down the rhetoric because we are close to a civil war. I want you now to think about every single urban liberal who went out and bought a gun because of the COVID pandemic. And now think about how many of them are sitting in their homes armed because of the coronavirus pandemic. And I want you to think about what happens when the looters do come to the suburbs. It's a perfect storm. And I can't tell you who is orchestrating what or why, but I can tell you, at the very least, there are interested parties in helping things move along in a negative direction. I hope things just I hope everything just simmers down, and come Monday, everything is back to normal. But I make no promise.
To control everything and own nothing.
In the history of this nation, have so many people been for the cause of freedom and human dignity. Now let me say this, keep this movement going, keep this movement rolling. Long as we keep moving like we are moving, the power structure will have to give in. In spite of the difficulties